Hello, listeners. Before we begin today's episode, I want to issue a bit of a content warning. This episode includes raw, unfiltered discussions about addiction, including topics covering drug use, sexual abuse, and suicide. Our goal in this episode is to explore these topics thoughtfully and respectfully. But if you feel uncomfortable or even triggered by these subjects, we highly recommend that you proceed with caution or even consider skipping this episode altogether. Additionally, if you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, we want to emphasize that there is support, resources, and help available 24/7 in the United States via the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Hotline. You can find more info in the show notes if you're interested. Thank you, and now for today's episode. Coming to you live this week from the Beltline in Atlanta, Georgia, I'm your host, Kelley Bostian, and if you think you're a normal person, welcome to the Normal Person Podcast.
Some people act like normal's a four-letter word, but most of us want to be normal. To sit and talk for a bit about it, whatever it is. Are you okay today to press play? Is there any other way to be normal?
On this week's episode, we invite passing strangers to sit down and tell us not just what they're addicted to, but how they found themselves addicted in the first place.
I would say I'm definitely addicted to communities.
I recently became addicted to drinking a little bit.
I think I'm on a short-term addiction of this social media thing.
Everybody's kind of addicted to social media.
I spend too much time on women and drinking alcohol.
I was a crack addict for 14 years. I have 11 years sober off cocaine.
From the new and addicting nature of social media to more traditional forms of addiction and substance abuse, today we'll explore how these addictions manifest into different aspects of our guests' lives and the impact they have on their well-being. Most of the time, these addictions are negative, but as you'll hear from our first guest of today's episode, there is a rare chance that an addiction can become a net positive. All right, so your name is, wait, it's not Kelsey.
No.
It's with a K, though.
It's got the same sound as a K.
K.
Airy.
Is it Carrie with a K or Carrie with a C?
C.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, Carrie, tell me, we talked a little bit off camera, but tell me what you're doing today. Why are you in Atlanta?
So our son is going to go to Auburn. He's got a Camp War Eagle orientation camp for parents, too. So we flew in last night.
Okay.
I came in from Colorado. He came in from a trip to Chicago.
Okay. And then y'all rendezvoused here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And you're on the Beltline.
Purposely the east side.
Yes.
Found an Airbnb. I'm like, this is a funky, cool part of Atlanta. I don't want to be downtown. I don't want to be in a Marriott, blah, blah, blah. Give me something cool.
Cool. So, Carrie, is there anything you're addicted to?
So, yeah, I kind of think about addiction, and I'd say the addiction of being outside for me. I don't necessarily recognize it's an addiction, but when I'm out and about, I just know, like, my demeanor is different. I'm happier for the rest of the day. I feel energized. And it's not about going to the gym. That doesn't work for me as much as just whether it's biking or walking or just being in nature.
Yeah.
And I feel like Atlanta's got a pretty good, I look at the parks on the map. There's lots of them. It's green, lots of trees.
Yep.
You guys do a great job with these belt lines and stuff.
Thank you. I try really hard.
You do well.
You said that you notice when you go outside that you feel different.
So here's the thing I've been thinking about a lot lately. We have a Japanese exchange student that stayed with us, and I'm sure you've probably heard of, like, forest baths. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I've never read about it, but that seems like a thing. When I go hiking, I'm like, yeah, the forest just surrounds me and energy and wind, and like I can't stand staying in a hotel where you can't open up a window, even just breathe fresh air.
How long do you think you could go? And I understand.
No, don't tell me.
I'm asking this question. How long do you think before you would have just a complete mental breakdown?
I don't know that I could go that far
to
say it'd be any kind of mental breakdown. It's about being energized and being part of the world.
Thank you, Carrie, for kicking off this episode with such a refreshing and positive perspective on addictions. It's important to remember that something like the great outdoors can provide a much-needed escape from everyday life. And dare I say, it might be the only addiction we talk about today that I would encourage everyone to pick up and try at least once. Now, let's shift gears. Our next guest, Rocky J, is a fitness enthusiast, veteran, and online content creator who finds working out to be not just a needed routine, but an essential part of her life.
Okay, I mean, obviously you were in the Marine Corps, so I imagine there's some physical fitness there, but when did this addiction start?
I think it really hit me when I moved to Atlanta after my divorce.
Okay, there's some layers there. So when was that?
My divorce?
Yeah.
About 2 years ago.
Okay.
I think that divorce really hit me hard, and I didn't know how to, because, I went to schoolyards with Taylor Terry.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of karate, ballet, a lot of high-level stuff, and, really proficient in everything that I've ever done. So when I got a divorce, that really hit me hard because I felt like I failed.
Do you feel like you weren't proficient at it?
At my marriage?
I mean, both. Fitness and your marriage.
Fitness, I felt like that was my safe place.
Okay.
In my marriage, I felt like I couldn't understand why he didn't want me. I felt like I was literally willing to do whatever it took to be married to him. But as I started to do fitness and get older, I realized it's not a one side. It was only me trying.
Gotcha.
It's a two-person thing.
Yeah, that's good. And you learn everyone becomes a more refined, unique human through bad relationships.
Yeah, now I'm so different, and I love it so much.
That's good. So it's not a addiction that's slowing you down at all.
No.
If anything, it's probably good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's something I can always come back to.
Good. I love your addiction. It's something I wish I could get addicted to.
Sometimes, like with Rocky J and Carrie, our addiction can have a net positive benefit on our bodies and minds. However, as you'll hear from our next guest, who grew up in a tree-speaking Ghanaian immigrant household, when our dopamine receptors and social validation become linked in our brain, it can form the early basis of an addictive personality.
Is there anything you're addicted to?
So, when I think of addiction, I think of something like you need it in your life.
Okay.
You can't go without it. I guess I would say, and this was a lot different than when I was younger, actually. I do enjoy talking to people. It's very, I would say, intoxicating. I would answer this differently when I was younger, because when I was younger, I tended to stay away from people. I didn't really like talking to people.
Did you want to?
I did, but I think it was just a lot of social anxiety. Just like I brought up earlier when you were talking about when you moved here from Ghana and just having a rough transition between a Twi-speaking country to an English-speaking country. Just not being able to converse with my classmates or just find similarities between us made it very hard to just get close to them.
Yeah. So you think that kind of your addiction to wanting that social element with people comes from maybe a place of frustration almost? It's you kind of really wanted it, but it was hard.
Yes.
To get
I would definitely say that was it. Yes. I enjoy talking to people, but I also do need my space after because I just get really exhausted after having a social interaction. I actually call my parents every day. We all have a family group chat that we just talk to every day, and I have friends that I also just play games with in the evening as well. So, and then there are moments on the weekends where I just go for a hike and I just talk to random people.
It's clear from this conversation that our need for social connection can be incredibly powerful, sometimes bordering on the addictive. However, as we'll hear from our next guest, Tyler, sometimes seemingly harmless addictions such as socializing and community building can sometimes mirror the same patterns found in more destructive addictions, like the ones we'll explore later in the episode.
We're going into this interview.
Bryce and Breezy for sure.
Tyler, so tell me a little bit about yourself.
So yeah, I'm Tyler Saki. I'm a producer, audio engineer. I just got into videography, and I'm focused on building communities, and I'm a lover of all people. So
this podcast is perfect, right up your alley.
Yeah, I'm definitely watching all the other episodes for sure.
So let's get into today's question a little bit.
For sure.
Are you addicted to anything?
I would say I'm definitely addicted to communities, the inception of them, and then also why we have them.
Yeah, elaborate. What do you mean by communities?
So really just the gathering of people that all have the similar mission or similar idea that all support it. For instance, if we just take it back thousands of years ago when it was okay, we're a tribe, that's a community, we want to live, we're eating off these things, and maybe there is a spiritual thing that we're all kind of combined behind. Now, obviously, today, there's so many different kind of communities, but that's kind of the big thing that I've kind of been addicted to, looking into, and then also trying to build also.
Okay, so let's break that into a few parts. So when you're looking into communities, what are you looking for?
That's a good question. I think a common goal or a common similarity between everything is kind of what I'm looking for when it comes to communities.
Do you feel like this is something I've heard anecdotally from people outside of religion and specifically proximity communities? Like, let's say you grew up in this town, right? And everyone knew each other. That community third space where you can go and you can escape your job and your home life and go somewhere that's not those two things.
Yeah.
Those are on the decline. Do you feel that that's the case?
I definitely feel like that's extremely on the decline because just growing up in things, the community was like the cul-de-sac. You went to your friend's house, all the friends were outside, we're running around, acting up, and that was a community in itself. But now getting older, it does seem a little bit harder to really find that community where everybody kind of knows everybody, or at least is really bringing in everybody to be truly connected to.
One of the things that I've noticed when people talk about addiction and things that they're addicted to is like the withdrawal of it.
Okay, yeah.
For these types of communities that you're addicted to, how long do you feel like you could go without it before you go crazy?
I feel like that's a good question. Yeah, I would say a couple months because, you could go on a trip, walk across the country, and you'd be like, oh, yeah, this was cool. But there would be a certain point that's like, dang, either if it's family, friends, dogs, pets, you'd be like, oh, I need something, you know what I mean? The birds ain't coming down talking like that. I think Tyler really hit the nail on the head in terms of capturing something that we as people are all probably addicted to. The feeling of community acceptance. Whether it's in a church, company, club, family, friend group, or however you get your social fix. The feeling of belonging is both addictive and intrinsic. Now, for most people living in the 21st century, this addiction to social belonging is something that can now be accessed 24/7 through a little thing called social media. As you'll hear firsthand from our next guest, Ella, a fresh high school graduate and aspiring musician, there's often a complicated emotional roller coaster that comes hand in hand with being constantly connected to an online community. You said you're from Stone Mountain?
Yeah, like around that area, yeah.
Okay. And you've never been to the Beltline?
Mm-mm.
Wow.
No, I've been to different parts of Atlanta, but I'm not downtown a whole lot.
What do you think of it?
It's pretty. I like it. It's hot. It's very hot today.
It's kind of miserable today.
Yeah, it's sweaty and gross.
So I want to ask you today's question that we're asking people in the Beltline, which is, are you addicted to anything?
I think first and foremost is social media.
Okay.
That's kind of like everybody's kind of addicted to social media at this point. Like,
what makes you feel like you're addicted to that?
I just spend like all my free time on it. Like if I have an ounce of free time, I'm on my phone scrolling immediately. I used to post my whole life on social media, and I've kind of stopped. I've strayed away from that.
For your addiction to social media, what drives that? Do you find yourself like, oh my God, I just spent 2 hours scrolling? It's
literally just like, it's like mind-numbing, I think. Like it's just like if I had a bad day or something, even if I had a good day, I need to wind down. It just shuts my brain off. Like it's like, so it's kind of like anxiety medicine for you. Kinda, yeah.
Really? Which
is bad.
Yeah, I think some people have the opposite effect where they feel more anxious.
No, because it's just like I'm just mindlessly scrolling. If I see news, it's like, I guess it bothers me, but it's mainly TikTok. I scroll through TikTok way too much. Way too much.
Do you like make things too?
Yeah, I have, I think 18,000 followers.
Whoa.
Something like that.
Wow.
Our videos go viral. Those are
What's your number one viral video?
It's a video of me and my cat. I'm playing guitar. I was playing this song. It's like a perfect loop of me like playing a song on guitar and my cat's like snoring in my lap. It got like, I think 5 million views, something like that.
Those get me every time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Everybody kept commenting. They're like, your cat looks like Adam Driver. And I was like,
what
does that mean? But yeah, I think.
Does he though?
A little bit.
Okay.
She does a little bit.
Okay.
Especially in that video.
Yeah.
But if you turn it up, you can hear her like purring. It's really cute.
This addiction you have, is this something that you think is problematic in your life?
It can be.
Okay, in what way?
It kind of like goes hand in hand with a deeper addiction that like when I saw the question, what are you addicted to? It was social media was the first front of my face, that's obvious. But then there's this addiction to like validation and like I want people to like me so bad, and social media kind of worsens that a little bit, so it kind of goes hand in hand with it and they kind of help each other out.
Yeah.
That's the bad part of it. There's no real problems that it causes with my life outside of it, I guess. Because I know how to get away from it. Like, I can have a day like this where I'm not on my phone all day. But when I get home, I'm going to be on my phone and I'm going to be posting videos and being like, oh, I hope people like this video.
Yeah.
It's like a constant search for validation, kind of. That's what social media is for me.
For some listeners, it may be easy to dismiss Ella's social media addiction as typical teenage behavior. However, the more people I talk to throughout the day, the more I realize the addiction to community validation through social media affects every single person that uses it. As you'll hear from our next guest, Mike, who's a fitness trainer, gym owner, and someone who makes a living off of helping people break bad habits, the things that cause social media addiction can vary widely from person to person. So, I wanted to ask you today about our question. Is there something you're addicted to?
I think I'm on a short-term addiction of this social media thing. You know, I can't get my phone out of my hand.
Yeah.
Even though I know it's something else more important than I need to be doing. That scroll is real.
Yeah.
You know, that social media piece is real. And so I think that's what's going on right now, if you were to ask.
Yeah. When did that start?
Oh, man. I want to say I noticed it getting worse probably about, I don't know, maybe about 2 months ago. Yeah, about 8 weeks ago. I noticed it getting a little worse, you know.
What's your platform of choice?
I want to say Instagram. It starts out with me looking for information to be able to build and grow either my business or myself. And then something else will pop up in the feed that'll take me completely away from why I came here.
Right. What's the type of content you get? Everyone gets different things. What type of things that draw you in?
Oh, the females. the females twerking and half dressed. Those are the things that I really need to try to get away from, man. It's real out here, man. It's a struggle. It really is a struggle, you know, the females. I went on there for one reason, and the next thing I know, something else pops up in my news feed, and this is where I am for a minute. And I almost got to pull myself off of that, or I'm praying that my phone hurry up and dies. You know, I'm like, battery, would you hurry up and die? You know what I mean?
So this is a fresh addiction.
Yeah.
Like right now, if someone took your social media away, how long do you think you could go before you're like, I need that?
Forever. If I wouldn't.
Oh, you would just stop.
Yeah. When I decide that I'm no longer going to do that, then my mind is made up. I just haven't decided yet. And today might be the day.
It could be.
You know what?
That you said, we had a little intervention.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now that you brought it to my attention, this may be my addiction.
I really respected Mike's attitude when it came to confronting and possibly stopping his social media addiction during our intervention. But what if your addiction can't simply be deleted off your phone when you're overwhelmed? Our next guest shares an addiction that's a bit of a step above the typical social media addiction. Interestingly, although his particular addiction falls into the realm of drug abuse, it seems to be also rooted in the same search for social validation that many of our previous guests have expressed.
I'm Brandon.
Brandon?
Nice
to meet you. Yeah, so what do you do for your job?
I work in film production.
Can you disclose what you work on, or is it a secret?
I have signed some NDAs, though, so I won't talk about all projects.
Don't tell me what happens to Thanos.
Yeah. I know, though, by the way. I work in film production, like I said. I'm a freelance worker here in Atlanta, and I do mostly commercials, which is super cool, I think. As a freelance worker, basically how it works, somebody will hit me up and be like, hey, are you free next Wednesday and Thursday? I'll be like, sure. And I'll go work those 2 days. I work long hours. They're typically, on average, around 12-hour days. I don't really schedule anything for that day but work. Yeah. Unless I really, really have to squeeze something in at the sacrifice of my sleep.
let's talk about today's question, which is, what are you addicted to? Do you have any addictions?
So I believe I do. I feel like I spend too much time with women or on women and drinking alcohol. And I don't know. It feels weird to call it an addiction to me. Although, by definition, you know, if I sit down and think about like how much time I spent or resources, or like when I tell myself I'm not, and then I end up going up and hanging out with somebody, or like drinking when I said I wasn't, like that feels like an addiction.
Yeah. How long do you feel like you've thought about it as an addiction?
Recently, for about like a year and some change is recent to me.
Is there a specific incident that made you question it?
So I'm a social drinker. I wouldn't just drink like to sit down at home by myself.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I feel like I have to drink every time I'm in a social setting is where I really am disappointed in myself. I just realized last year a lot, I would wake up on Saturdays and Sunday mornings hungover as fuck.
Yeah.
And me being hungover like that, all I need is sleep, food, more sleep, and it wastes the entire rest of the day.
Yep.
And going back early in this podcast, I talked about how my free time is really important because I work all day when I'm working. And so when I have free time, I like to catch up on all the other things I don't get to do. So for me to be in bed just like feeling fucked up, just kind of makes me, I'm disappointed that I ended up drinking that much and then wasting the next day.
Do you feel like you have an addictive personality?
I do.
Is it hard to turn off once you start?
Yeah. I think I'm like an all or nothing type of guy. Being all or nothing is a problem in itself because it still lets whatever that is control you in a way. Alcohol specifically, I'll say, I think I should be able to say, hey, I'm not going to drink this month, and then the month is up, and then I drink for one weekend, and then the next weekend I don't. But that's not how I operate. I have to like hide from it or like indulge in it, which I don't. Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you said like you feel a little disappointed that you can't go and not do that. So do you feel like it's like a social anxiety thing?
No, I don't think it's that. Oh, it's weird how I keep going back to work. But at work, I'm really like, it's my job to talk to people. Yeah. And so I don't think it's social anxiety. I'm not sure what the root of it is. I think it's pleasure. Like, it's fun. I like drinking. It's fun. Right. I like drinking. Like, being drunk is kind of sick up until you get sick.
When it comes to many of the drug addictions I discuss with random passerbys throughout this recording, there seemed to be a common confliction on how they viewed their own addiction. On one hand, using drugs or drinking can clearly cause bad financial behavior or even physical problems over time. But practically every person I interviewed still said the same thing to me when I asked them why they did it in the first place. It's fun, it relieves stress, and I like to do it. However, as you'll hear from our next and final guest today, the fun, addictive feeling that comes with casual drugs can also lead to an all-consuming obsession that leads you down a very, very dark path. John, also known as the Beltline Prophet, is a street-famous, homeless individual with an infectiously positive attitude. This particular conversation I'm about to share isn't the first time John has shared his life story with me. However, it is the first time he's passed by our mobile podcast booth and waited patiently to share his story on the hot mic.
And what are you doing out here today?
Enjoying life.
Enjoying life.
Enjoying life. Walking the Beltline. Went to a friend of mine's to visit for a while.
It's so hot out here. How are you doing?
I don't do well with the heat.
Okay.
I do not do well with the heat. For me, some reason this year doesn't seem as hot as it was last year.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's hot, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I've kind of got accustomed to the heat. I live outdoors, so, I'm used to it. I like it.
Yeah. Maybe we should just go right into the question.
Let's do it.
Let's go right into the question. John, Beltline Poet. Is there anything you're addicted to?
Well, I can tell you what I was addicted to. I was a crack addict for 14 years. I have 11 years sober off cocaine. I still like wine. I smoke a little weed.
Yeah.
As far as anything hard, no. But I still like my herbals. You know, a couple mushrooms on occasion.
Well, let's talk about the first thing. Did you say it was crack?
Crack cocaine.
Okay. Tell me about that. What got you into that?
Honestly, it was an accident. I was with my uncle. We went fishing. I had just got reunited with him and had no idea about anything about drugs. Knew about alcohol, but not about drugs. And went fishing with him. Had a couple bottles of Christian Brother with us. And what I didn't know is that my uncle had rolled crack into cigarettes and put them in a bag with regular roll-ups. So I actually asked him for a cigarette, got one out the bag, and was smoking it. And the next thing I know, I find myself in the water, trying to get out, not knowing how I ended up in the water. My uncle puts the cane pole down there and drags me out. He says, boy, what the hell's wrong with you? I said, I don't know, Unc. I said, that cigarette, it tasted awful funny, and I got real dizzy.
Yeah.
And he looks at me and he says, oh, shit, I forgot to tell you, there's something in a few of those cigarettes. He says, you should have asked me. I said, I did. He says, I didn't think about it. So he says, and he breaks out an arrow shaft, which I had no idea what he was doing with it, and puts something white on it and shoves it in my mouth. He says, here, suck on this. So naive, I did. And
you didn't know what was going on.
I didn't know what was going on. I had no clue.
Yeah.
And inhaled it, coughed, gagged, threw up. Didn't appreciate it. Didn't like it at all. And then I ran into one of my old roommates who I didn't know was using. And he did the same thing. He's like, here, man, have some of this. So I tried it again. And never really was addicted. You know, I'd try it on occasion, you know, until I found somebody that I could get my own from. That's when the addiction phase kicked in. And when I had a constant supplier that I could constantly get it from. And I had a 24/7 addiction. Probably about 2 or 3 years of off and on sampling, trying here and there. But for the main part, I got so bad into it, I became a male prostitute.
Wow.
I sold my body to gay men to get drugs.
Wow.
And, I was abused as a child, so I think I kind of used the prostitution as a way to deal with not knowing how to handle the abuse, especially after being reunited with my real family.
Yeah.
So the abuse was one of the reasons that I used, because I didn't want to feel anything. I didn't want the emotional connection to people. I chose to run away from reality. The fact that my parents and I didn't get along, I'm adopted.
Yeah.
That my parents and I didn't get along, didn't approve of my lifestyle. And the first time I got arrested for possession, I actually told my mother, I'm like, Mom, listen, I got to be honest with you, I'm addicted to cocaine. And her response was not exactly what I expected. She goes, well, we kind of thought she was doing something. I was expecting something more caring and concerned, but instead they were totally oblivious and non-understanding that I had become an addict. I had a disease.
Yeah. Is that how you view it, as a disease?
Well, I had no control.
Okay.
You know, I was chasing it constantly. I mean, I gave up food to smoke.
Wow.
Yeah, I gave up bathing to smoke. I gave up life to smoke.
Do you feel like that specific addiction, what was the breaking point where you realized, I'm completely addicted, I'm helpless, and I need to get out of this?
I was miserable.
Okay.
I laid in a bed covered with cockroaches and put my foot in a shoe where the cockroaches babies had eaten through, with cockroach guts all over my feet. And I just laid back on the bed and they swarmed me, and I said, God, just take me. I'm ready. I want to die. I wanted to die. I was too much of a coward to kill myself. I didn't want to kill myself, but I wanted to die, you know, and I begged him. I'm like, God, please take me away. Take my life. I don't want to live like this anymore. And I ran into Pastor Paul Palmer for the Atlanta Dream Center. Hey, Pastor Paul, if you get an image of this, beautiful
Paul,
man,
shout out.
Beautiful man. He was homeless for 10 years, suffered from cancer, and survived it, and became a pastor.
Nice.
And it was, I went to him, I was like, Pastor Paul, I'm done. I'm tired. I can't do this anymore, you know, and just realized that there's another side of life that people refuse to look at, a beautiful side of life.
What would you say that is?
Well, first of all, if you're addicted and you're trying to escape from something, don't. Remember that life brings along with it hard times, and that those hard times are what mold people into the person that they're supposed to be. So I often tell people, I'm like, listen, if you don't love what you're doing, and you're not happy with your life, and you're using drugs or something outside of what you normally would do to cope with it, then find what you love doing and do that to survive. Because I promise you, whatever you love that's in your heart is a way for people to make money and survive. You know, it's called passion.
Mm-hmm. You think that's at the root of a lot of people's addiction, is that they don't have a way to achieve inner happiness?
I think so. That or their inner happiness was taken from them or stolen from them as a child.
Yeah.
You know,
which
and it happens
sounds like
to a lot of people.
That might have exactly what happened to you.
What happened to me?
Well, Thank you for being on again, of course. Anything you want to say while it's rolling?
Everybody, check Kelley's blog out. It's really good. And I appreciate his talk. Podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, my bad. Podcast.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Blogs kind of died about 10 years ago, unfortunately.
Still blogging. Nothing wrong with a blogger.
No.
Yeah.
We all love bloggers.
You got Beltline joggers, and then you got Beltline bloggers.
And that's a wrap on this week's episode of the Normal Person Podcast. First and foremost, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to all the guests for sharing their personal trauma, struggles, and insights into addiction. While editing this week's episode, it's become very clear to me that addiction comes in many different forms and affects us all in many different ways. But there seems to be a common thread that binds all addicts together: the pursuit of connection, acceptance, and happiness. Whether it's social media, substances, or something else, breaking free from addiction requires understanding, support, and often professional help. If you're struggling with addiction, please don't be ashamed to admit it and reach out to those around you for help. Also remember, if you don't have anyone to help you, that resources like the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Hotline are always available 24/7 at 1-800-662-4357. Even if you feel ashamed or alone in your struggle, you're not. If you like today's show and want to hear more extraordinary stories and topics from normal people just like this, don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave us a review. We post new episodes every Wednesday, and you can also follow us on social media at normalpersonpod for daily clips, inspirational posts, Q&A polls, and much, much more. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, remember to take care of yourself and be kind to others. I'm Kelley Bostian. I'll see you next week.